Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion for July 5th, 2020, recorded around 2:36 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, taking a look here at the latest sea surface temperature anomalies last updated as of yesterday, Independence Day, we continue to notice this area of continuous cooling out here in the equatorial Pacific. No such El Nino to be found this year, and this will likely head towards a La Nina background environment. And by the time we get into the latter parts of the fall months and then into winter of this year, we will likely see this begin to fall off into a La Nina. Most of the modeling and the climate models are indicating that, and you even notice now all of that cooler anomalies have made it well out here, extending basically about to 160, minus 160 there, and just about on the zero, about the equatorial line right through there. So it is something that we are going to be watching over the next several weeks to months, exactly how this evolves over the next several weeks to months. But again, the biggest takeaway is that this will not be an El Nino event, and this will be impacting the Atlantic Basin in a more favorable environment. Now, moving on to the actual Atlantic Basin, we continue to notice the consistent area of warming, although we have seen some cooler anomalies try to surface up, especially in the northern main development region because of all of that Saharan air. And there's just been screaming easterly trade winds across this area, kind of disturbing a lot of the warming that was kind of developing across this area. However, we will see a more prolonged westerly wind event over the next several weeks or so that's expected to really start after this week, and then this will begin to kind of prompt a more exact warming trend across the main development region once again. So some of these warmer anomalies will kind of rebound in through here, but again, most of the area is still about a half a degree to a degree Celsius above the long-term average in the main development region. The southwestern Atlantic, Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico, the Bahamas, those areas are very warm all the way up and through the Gulf Stream, and even the northwestern Atlantic Basin and the subtropical regions. While in the meantime, we still have all of this kind of persistent cooling anomalies here. So this kind of indicates that this isn't a basin-wide warmth, and there's no indications that this will be a consistent basin-wide warmth. Now, basin-wide warmth is very detrimental to very busy hurricane seasons in terms of the main development region activity. What happens is if you get a basin-wide warmth in through here, this area just fills in with warmth. The deep tropics, this will just kind of highlight that in green right there. All of this instability, which is basically in red, that will be kind of translating further to the north. It will actually begin to pull energy from the main development region and stream it northward and fill it more up in the subtropics like we saw in 2018 and even 19 to a certain extent, where the subtropics were a lot more active than the deep tropics itself. Now, we still had, Cat 5 Dorian that formed. It was from a tropical wave that came off of Africa. Hurricane Michael, Cat 5 Hurricane Michael, which formed out here from a Central American gyre. Those sort of things really play in heavily to the overall season, and it's not just main development region activity that will kind of spark a very strong system. Like even Hurricane Katrina back in 2005, Katrina never formed from a tropical wave that came off of Africa. It did not originate down here. It got its origins out here in the southwestern Atlantic and the Bahamas, then eventually kind of traveled through here and made landfall there in New Orleans, Louisiana. So my biggest takeaway is, while the deep tropics right now are expected to be, very favorable for tropical cyclone activity, really throughout the next few months, really beginning here, kind of pushing more towards that favorable state within the next 2 weeks or so, and then really continuing on for the foreseeable future, probably into the peak of the season. It's not always tropical waves that come off of Africa that really kind of kickstart things. You could have a Central American gyre later in the season, like in October with Hurricane Michael in 2018, that becomes a Cat 5. You can have these sort of different systems. So the biggest takeaway is basin-wide warmth basically in the deep tropics continues. Cooling up here in the subtropical. This is promoting a bigger high ridge of high pressure. A lot of stuff going on, but this has the signs of a very busy Atlantic hurricane season ahead. Now, taking a look here at the upper ocean heat content values, this is just a kind of a different way of looking at the ocean temperatures and the thermodynamic environment that these storms have to work within. And One thing here is that once you start getting into these kind of yellows and reds and greens, really this upper third of the scale that I'm highlighting here, it's really that more, it's very significant upper ocean heat content. That's how deep your 80-degree isotherm goes. What an isotherm is just a line of constant temperature. And in this case, these water temperatures are very deep at a very warm at a deep layer. And basically when a tropical cyclone would come along in here, if one does, it would take advantage of that, and instead of upwelling cooler water like it would do out in this region, it would upwell just warmer and warmer water. And we're seeing that very significantly showing up here in the Southwest Atlantic and Caribbean. Basically where everywhere I'm highlighting right now rather has a very significant upper ocean heat content layer, enough to support tropical cyclones. And that's one of the things that's very important, is that you don't necessarily need all of these reds out here to support intensifying cyclones. You could have stuff out here like in the southern Maine development region, and this will also continue to lift north as we progress through time. You notice if we zoom in here, most of this is actually kind of positioned down, running through here south of the Cabo Verde Islands, and then especially out here making its mark even in the Gulf of Mexico, where we do have a system that we are going to keep tabs on, which has been designated newly formed Invest 98L, and we will go over that here in just a minute. Actual sea surface temperatures across the area from tropicaltidbits.com. This is a CDAS methodology. It's just a different way of measuring the actual skin temperatures recorded around 1 o'clock this morning. We continue to notice this basic runway. We've been talking about this, but these water temperatures are alarming through here. And not alarming in saying that, oh my God, something is going to come along and take advantage of this. But if something is there, and that is already, especially already chugging along, these water temperatures are extremely warm. This is literal bath water, if not a little higher. This is running at about 92 to 94 Fahrenheit, and the water temperatures out here in the Bahamas, and even to an extent now portions of the Gulf of Mexico. 98L is actually located right in through here, where water temperatures are 29, 30 Celsius, and then expected to exit into the same region out here, 29, 30 Celsius, maybe 28 Celsius. But these water temperatures are very warm. And again, we'll just take a look real quick at the OHC, the upper ocean heat content. Once again, you notice where 98L is expected to come out, very deep upper ocean heat content. So that is something we'll watch here over the next several days. But you notice almost basin-wide here in the western portions of the Atlantic Basin, very warm. And this area right in through here is the warmest, basically, quite a bit above the long-term average and a bit above 2017, which was like the last real bonkers hurricane season. So this has the potential that if something does come along and take advantage of this, I mean, this is no joke. And these water temperatures, hopefully we get some sort of convection to kind of cool this off, or some, trades to kind of cool this off or something. But these water temperatures are extremely warm, and the thorough dynamic environment across the western half of the basin is more than supportive. Pretty supportive out here in the southeastern Pacific as well, where we also have two systems we'll keep it in tabs on. We'll go over that here in just a second. Looking at the wider view here, this is from the GOES 16 satellite from courtesy of the College of DuPage here. Again, you notice this dry, stable air mass, kind of some of the Saharan air and just overall drier air mass working its way once again into the Lesser Antilles, Barbados. We did get a comment from a viewer saying that Barbados has been very lackluster with rain, and it's, luckily it does look like that you're kind of, your end to that will be coming soon. Hopefully this tropical wave right here, there's a little bit of a wave axis. Nothing really expected to get going, but this wave axis will generally head off towards the north and west here over the next several days or so. This could provide some rain, much needed rain to Barbados and some of the Lesser Antilles and the Windward Islands down here, but overall, dry, stable air is plaguing most of the deep tropics. A couple of tropical waves there coming off at a low latitude, but nothing expected to really get going. But you do notice how this has a little bit of that kind of little tail, a little bit of that curl in there. So we will be watching it. It is a sign that the tropics are starting to open back up with favorability. Of course, it's only July 5th. So Given the fact that these tropical waves have been really strong this year, the African easterly jet is really strong. Signs are there for a very active season. Our tropical depression 5, has actually moved north and east of the Bermuda now, and is located right about here. And that will be continuing to move off towards the north and east here over the next several days before finally getting caught up in a more prevailing westerlies across here and really kind of carry this out towards Ireland maybe over the next few days or so. But again, this is expected to become a brief tropical storm here over the next few days or so. Again, this is a look at Tropical Depression 5. It is expected to become a brief tropical storm, which the next name would be the E name, so Aguardo, I do believe. So again, this will be likely Aguardo over the next day or so before finally becoming subtropical as it moves out here into cooler and cooler water off the Canadian Maritime. So no significant land concerns now. This is basically just going to be for the marine interest out there. Now, looking at Invest 98L, again, this was just designated a little bit before starting this recording. Right now it is 2:47 Eastern Time. It was designated about 2-ish o'clock Eastern Time right now, so we don't have all the models kind of initialized right now, but we do have a nice kind of low-level center, which is kind of positioned right in through here, and again, we have seen some cyclonic turning in the atmosphere. This is probably pretty close, actually. You know, if we can get a decent low-level center of circulation, this could be close to becoming a tropical depression. Again, it is very hard to tell, but there does look to be, you can see in kind of the end of the loop, and we'll kind of slow this down here. You can sort of see there in the end of the loop how we do have some cyclonic spin in the atmosphere. So this would suggest that we do have some cyclonic curvature in the atmosphere down through here. Now, whether this is actually a mid-level low or closed low-level circulation remains to be seen, but we do notice how some of these lower-level clouds have actually been kind of pulled in on the back side of this and kind of been pulled into it. So we can reasonably infer that there's probably a closed or somewhat of a closed, elongated center of circulation roughly right through there. So it's probably actually is close to becoming a tropical depression at this time. We do have convection that's kind of firing around the center, but this is a very small system embedded in a rather large envelope of energy, actually. This envelope of energy is basically causing all of these thunderstorms along with the diurnal heating, but all of these thunderstorms across the Florida Peninsula and across basically portions of the southeast. All of this is basically in response to a larger area of low pressure, kind of this broader low pressure, and centered in there is this area of concentrated energy of vorticity in the atmosphere. And over the next few days or so, this is expected to gradually move off towards the north and east here, or just plain east over the next few days or so before finally re-emerging off the southeast coast or the Florida coast over the next few days into pretty warm water. And again, we talked about this just a minute ago, but these water temperatures in through here are running about 29 to 30 Celsius, so very warm waters here. The upper ocean heat content values are pretty impressive. So if this system does manage to actually get its act together now, it will be a little bit harder to kind of open up into a broader wave, especially if this moves quicker over the land masses. This might not open up into a broader wave, but right now this is not classified as a tropical depression or a tropical cyclone at all. But we can reasonably infer that these lower level clouds out here, you can sort of see that. We'll kind of slow it down here, and we can't really zoom in that much, but you can really see how we've had some of that lower level clouds kind of stream in from this way, and you're kind of noticing that, and we're kind of seeing some of the curvature in these clouds back that way, clouds kind of moving that way. So we can reasonably infer that there might be something located in through here, and it's reasonable to infer that. You can see some of those lower level clouds getting pulled further to the north, and if we kind of speed that up here, we'll speed this up on a pretty good loop here. You notice how some of those cloud masses have actually been drifting northward over the last few hours while we're getting some of this kind of cyclonic curvature you kind of notice in through here. So we can reasonably infer that there is some surface vorticity in the atmosphere at this point in time. So we will likely see that. And if we take a look here at the 850 millibar vorticity, with a spin in the atmosphere about 5,000 feet off the ground. What you're really looking for is these deeper reds and whites here. That's indicating, that's very indicative of your cyclonic spin, your higher cyclonic spin. This is our tropical depression TD5 out here, moving off towards the north and east. Again, for reference, that's kind of the signature that we would like to see. And you do notice if we zoom in here on our Invest 98L, we can certainly see that some of this area is actually kind of trying to consolidate out here. Now, again, we talked about this, is that this is kind of extended out in more of a broader lobe, and we'll kind of zoom out here. This is extended out, and more of this broader lobe, this kind of trough of low pressure, basically, in this area of energy extends all the way out to the Gulf of Mexico. However, of course, as always, we have to watch the die end of stalling or dying fronts across the area, and especially in the Gulf of Mexico with water temperatures that are very warm in this area, 29, 30 Celsius, with deep upper ocean heat content values just off the shelf waters. This area certainly has a little bit of potent action going on and could become a brief tropical depression tonight before it moves inland early Monday morning across the Florida Panhandle. No significant wind concerns, but this will bring some pretty heavy rainfall to portions of the Florida Panhandle, and the larger envelope of energy could bring some very heavy rainfall to the Florida Peninsula in the southeastern United States here over the next few days or so, but our area of concentrated vorticity is right down here. And taking a look real quick at the Eastern Pacific Basin, again, we're not really seeing much, but a couple of areas that we will have to watch here over the next several days or so. Again, this area with a pretty low chance of development, but we will be watching this right now with an 80% chance over the next 5 days or so. No significant land concern threats to the Baja of California, the Cabo San Lucas resort areas, or any of the coastlines out here, the Gulf of California. No significant land concerns at that time for that particular area. Real quickly, we'll take a look here at the vertical wind shear. Again, you notice how the deep tropics are actually becoming a little bit more favorable. So this is very indicative that the times are starting to change for the deep tropics. So, we'll have to watch here over the next several weeks or so as the pattern progressively becomes more favorable. Again, this is our area, Tropical Depression 5 out here. Very unfavorable conditions. Might strengthen just a little bit, but no significant intensification. No land threats. That's the island of Bermuda out there. This is 98L. Still kind of in an area of higher shear, but again, about 10 to 20 knots of shear, but again, not really much of anything significant across that area. Wider angle visible satellite shot. Again, you can clearly see the area of kind of concentrated vorticity down in this area, but the overall larger envelope of energy is kind of spanning all the way out and through here. That's kind of the overall envelope of energy with this kind of front kind of just stalled through here, and then our concentrated area of low pressure that is kind of just sitting right through there. So again, this will be heading off towards the north and east here and could become a brief cyclone, but again, no significant land impacts, but there could be some heavy rain, maybe a tornado or two. Certainly in these tropical cyclones, they can produce tornadoes. So just kind of be weather aware, but it's not something that's going to, be a very impactful threat in terms of wind, but, rain is an impact and could produce, some localized flooding in spots. So it is just something to monitor, not really classified as a system right now, but we will continue watching as that kind of progresses through time. Now, taking a look here at the 12Z Gfs forecast, this is the 850 millibar vorticity. Spinning the atmosphere 5,000 feet off the ground, coming from tropicaltidbits.com. Again, this is Tropical Depression 5. That's kind of located right through there, moving off towards the north and east over the next few days or so. And again, the GFS really isn't picking up on our system out there in the Gulf of Mexico. And that's kind of a problem because this area of energy and vorticity is smaller than what these global models can actually resolve. And what tends to happen, and we saw this with with Hurricane Beryl back in 2018, I do believe. I think it was 18 or 19, one of those 2 years. We had Hurricane Beryl that was down here in the deep tropics out here, but it's a very small, compacted little system that only the hurricane models were able to resolve. And because those are able to resolve a smaller scale circulation where the global models are not able to resolve as small of a system and compact of a system as a very small area of concentrated vorticity. So one of the problems that we're having is, well, where is this area of low pressure? Now the GFS, you can kind of pick it out. It's located right through here at hour 84 before it kind of just scoots along the coastline and not really develops into much of a threat at all. And the reason for this is that you do notice that there is a pretty decent area of high pressure. Now the actual high is kind of situated out through here, but it's kind of little fingers, if you will, reach all the way out to here, and it's kind of stopping 98L, which has now been designated. It stops the 98L from actually coming out far enough out here before kind of pinning back in. So how far, how far inland or how far out on the coast does it actually get? The European actually, remember yesterday it was a lot more stronger of a system, is kind of showing much of the same thing, where the system really isn't well organized. I mean, it is certainly a little bit better organized in this model field than the GFS, but this stays far enough inland too, and could produce some rain, but this area of high pressure is really not allowing the system. It can't just kind of come out a little bit further. It can't just come out like that and swoop back inland. So there is going to be a problem as to how far inland or how far away from the coast this actually gets. And that will be the big determining factor on 98L's future. But again, right now, as it stands, there is a 40% chance over the next 5 days or so. And this is expected to kind of remain closer to the coast. But again, this could be far enough inland that this actually suppresses development. But certainly some rainfall potential, heavy rain, will be the primary threat with this system for now across portions of the Florida Panhandle over the next couple of days, while this generally heads off towards the north and east here over to the next few days. So certainly we have a lot to talk about, but again, the deep tropics are quiet for now, but 98L is situated through here. Tropical Depression 5 is kind of located in this bundle of energy moving off towards the north and east, expected to impact Ireland as a extratropical cyclone within the next week or so. But again, maybe some rain and wind for Ireland. Some energy down here in the deep tropics could bring some much needed rain for portions of the Lesser Antilles and Barbados and the Windward Islands, Trinidad, etc. So enjoy this time, enjoy this area of a little bit of quietness while you have it. Again, if you're in a hurricane prone area, make sure to prepare. Like, comment, and subscribe to our channel if you guys do want to see more. Again, your support is greatly appreciated. We are continuing to work on our unmanned camera system project, and look for another update video on the camera system project coming out within the next couple of days. Hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Michael O'Malley, and I will see you guys back here then tomorrow afternoon. Stay safe, everyone.